Thus far in our lectures, we've been talking about atoms and inorganic molecules. So inorganic molecules are molecules that lack carbon. Lack carbon, and they tend to be very simple. So I say tend. Organic molecules, which we're going to start talking about now, are carbon and hydrogen based. So they always contain carbon and hydrogen. And they tend to be very complex. There are 4 major organic molecules that we talk about. We talk about carbohydrates, proteins, nucleic acids, and fats. And these are the organic molecules that make up living things. So a macromolecule, or a polymer, is a very large, heavy, complex molecule, okay? It's made of many smaller molecules called monomers. So here's the term monomers that are joined together. And they're joined by a process called dehydration synthesis. These molecules can be broken down then by a process called hydrolysis. So what is dehydration synthesis and what is hydrolysis? Let's go into those. Dehydration synthesis is a chemical reaction that removes water. So the term dehydration so you have a lack of water. And so in this reaction, you remove water and this produces a chemical bond. Hydrolysis then, again, hydro, water, and lysis is break. So in this case, you have a chemical reaction in which water breaks a bond, a chemical bond. So let's look at it. Here you have a monomer. Remember, a monomer is a subunit of a larger macromolecule. So a monomer is just a subunit of a larger substance. So it could be something like, if you're thinking about it, you could have a monomer. An example could be peanut butter, and another monomer be jelly, and when they come together they make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. Think of it like that, okay? Obviously that's not what's going on here, but you get the idea. So a monomer here and a monomer here come together. We remove this water molecule and we produce this larger molecule, which in this case, since it's just 2 monomers, that would be called a dimer. But we produce a larger molecule. In hydrolysis then, we are going to add water. So you see water's coming in, and that water breaks this bond, producing the individual monomers again. That's hydrolysis. So let's look at carbohydrates as our first organic macromolecule. Carbohydrates are molecules that contain carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen in a 1 to 2 to 1 ratio. Examples of carbohydrates would be like sugar, sucrose, starches, bread is a nice starch, wheat is a starch, potatoes are starch. Primary energy for animals. This is what we use as our energy source. This is the main energy. And they're classified according to molecular size. So monosaccharides are simple sugars. They're the smaller substances. Monosaccharides are the monomers of larger sugars. I don't want an equal sign, I should say. Mono, ERS, produce larger substances like starch. or glycogen. So these are polysaccharides. Okay, because I can't write the whole thing. So let's look at some of these monomers then that make up these larger carbohydrates. Here is glucose and fructose. Glucose is your blood sugar, while fructose is a more sweet sugar coming from fruit. So it's fruit sugar. So the glucose has not as sweet of a flavor as sucrose, though they have the exact same chemical formula. The difference in structure allows fructose to have a sweeter flavor. And that difference in the structure with the same chemical formula, that is called an isomer. Here is another example of two monomers that come together forming a dimer. So here we have glucose and glucose. Through a process called dehydration synthesis, here's that water coming out, we form maltose. Maltose is green sugar. It's also a disaccharide. Other examples of disaccharide, you have glucose, or I'm sorry, not glucose, you have sucrose. I don't know why I said glucose. Sucrose is table sugar, the sugar that you put on your, and I don't know if they do it now, but when I was a kid, we used to put it on like cornflakes or Rice Krispies, but I know my kids thought it was just crazy to put sugar on cereal. So I don't know, some kids don't do it. Lactose is another disaccharide called milk sugar. And then we have our polysaccharides. Polysaccharides are very long chains of those monosaccharides. So poly means many, saccharide means sugar, so many sugars. Polysaccharides are how we can store simple sugars. So our cells store glucose, which is our blood sugar, in the form of glycogen, which is our storage for glucose. Plants store glucose as starch. And so I just mentioned this, glucose storage in plants is starch, glycogen storage or glucose storage in animals is glycogen. And then we have some polysaccharides that aren't storage, they're more structural. And so one example is cellulose. Cellulose is a structure that helps to form those cell walls in plants. And this is indigestible to animals. And so animals eat plant structures like cellulose, and it gives us fiber to help us keep our bowels moving properly. And so this is just a figure showing how the starch looks, what starch looks like, and how it's stored, okay? And then this is glycogen in animal cells. And then there is your cellulose. All right, I'm going to stop here and we'll talk about fats in our next video. Bye.